Well, good evening and welcome. It is June the 13th. It's Monday. It's 6:30 p.m. And I'm calling to order this meeting of the Planning Commission. In tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held in person and virtually via Zoom. As chair, I'll be leading tonight's Planning Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when invited throughout the meeting. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person, as some of you have, or join via online Zoom, as some other people have. If attendees experience audio problems while on Zoom, I suggest leave the meeting and then rejoin. That usually fixes the issue. Additional instructions on how to participate are posted online at burnsvillemn.gov in the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is available for viewing on BCTV and in the city's website. If you're unable to participate this evening, or if you're watching a rerun of this episode, please feel free to contact City Hall by sending them an email or sending a mail directly to City Hall. We appreciate your comments. If you also want to engage in public testimony tonight, please let the moderator know by using the comments section on Zoom, and they will help you be ready for that time. If you want to also participate, you can also call into the meeting at 651-372-8299. The meeting ID is 956-9326-9180. And for each public hearing, I will open up time when callers may speak to that item, and we'll give more instructions when we come to that point. Your call will be muted until that time, and you hit *6, be unmuted. Please note there might be a slight delay due to the difference in technologies. We ask that you either mute your computer or your television or whatever device you're listening to while on the phone. With that, I'm going to turn over the agenda. Any changes to the agenda, commissioners? Seeing none, I'm going to turn to staff.
No changes.
No changes, okay. Well, it looks like we have a full agenda tonight. I would take a motion to accept the agenda for tonight. Commissioner Watt?
I move that we approve the agenda as printed.
Thank you, Commissioner Watt. Any second? Commissioner Braddock? Second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Didn't think so. Good deal. We had a meeting on May 27th, and in that meeting, we did a lot of speaking, and all our notes are listed in the meeting notes that were included in your background. Any changes to the meeting notes as listed, commissioners? Staff?
No changes.
With that, I would take a motion to accept the meeting notes from the last meeting. Commissioner Anderson?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
A motion is by Commissioner Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Timmerman. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one opposes. With that, we're going to move to the very first item on tonight's agenda. And that is a public hearing for Quarry Property, LLC, a planned unit development amendment for interim use permit to extend the storage of materials and cement crushing operation in the floodplain at Lot 2, Block 2, Burnsville Amphitheater, 1001 Black Dog Road West. Here to present is one of our city planners, Deb Garros. Ms. Garros, the floor is yours. We can play music while Ms. Garros gets ready.
Let's see here.
Restart during the most important call of the day.
Yeah. First okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, the application that you have before you this evening is minor application application. It's for a project that has been approved and given extensions a couple of times in the past. We're looking at basically a PUD amendment for an interim use permit to allow the continuation of cement storage and crushing at the subject site, which is 1001 Black Dog Road West. The PUD amendment is needed to allow outdoor storage, and the cement crushing operation is a use in the underlying I-2, which is the general industrial zoning district. And then the interim use permit is needed because the site is in the floodway, so that is a use that's allowed under the floodplain regulations with an interim use permit. Well, the subject site is located on the Minnesota River, and it is north of the Kramer Quarry and west of I-35W. This is the aerial photo showing the subject site, and as you can see, this operation is existing out there, and the last time that the application came in and was approved was in 2012, or excuse me, in 2019, and then it's set to expire this August. The applicant would like to extend this for another 8 years to the year 2030, and the subject site is, as I said, in the floodway, and that's shown by the striping on this map, and the areas below that are at the 100-year floodplain elevation. And the site is shown, this is their site plan, showing primarily where the operation occurs on the site, and the applicant is requesting, again, continuation. There have been really no changes out in this area, the Minnesota River Quadrant. We've not received any complaints or had any issues with the operation in the past. And the city has granted interim use permits up through 2030 and a little bit beyond that, just because we have expanded the Kramer Quarry operation, which is anticipated to go for quite a number of years yet, and then also the Burnsville sanitary landfill. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the PUD amendment and interim use permit, subject to the same conditions that they have received in the past for the original 2012 approval, and then also for the most recent approval. The only change being is that the end date is changed to June 21st of 2030. And with that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Garros. I believe the applicant is here as well, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Daniel Schleck is here via Zoom,
Okay.
and he is representing the applicant.
Thanks for joining us. Any questions for staff, commissioners? Commissioner Watt.
I have a couple questions. Thanks for a great presentation. There's a time limit, no concrete crushing, after June 1st until November 1st. I feel like we've reviewed this before, and I don't remember why there was a time limit, like no crushing during a certain part of the year. Do you recall?
I do not recall. I know that that's been the same condition that has been there for,
Okay.
Since 2012.
Okay, not that important, just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Ms. Garros, has there been any complaints or about noise or anything along those lines? Dust in the air?
No,
Anything?
we've had no complaints. And I think primarily because this site is really, it's pretty well screened in terms of, existing topography to the west, and there really isn't anything around it. Probably there's more noise and dust that's created from the Kramer landfill to the south.
No. Good point. With that, I'm going to actually, the applicant is here. I would offer the opportunity for Mr. Slowick. Is that his name?
Daniel Schleck.
Schleck, that's what I meant. I'm trying to read his name on the Zoom there. If you have any comments, questions, concern for us with...
Can you hear me? It's unclear.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I think the only thing that I would say is, we anticipate continued operations and full compliance with all the requirements. And as Ms. Garrow said, we're pretty much remote from any kind of neighbors that might have any concerns. And so we've been very successful in the operations there and would like to continue the same use.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Schleck? Great. And you haven't had any complaints or about noise volumes, dust in the air or anything? I remember when it first came along, there was a whole host of people from a city to the north of us, we won't mention who, but there's a city up there, and haven't heard anything from that, I'm assuming then.
Yeah, it is a pretty inane kind of use over there, so.
Okay. Well, thank you. Commissioner Timmerman.
I do have a question for Ms. Garros. It looks like this is a carryover as well, but I'm curious if you know the significance of the $10,000 cash letter of credit, if that's paid, if that's still held on file, if that's a new $10,000. I'm wondering if that has been communicated with the applicant and what the details are behind that.
This would be the same that is already on file. It's a requirement of the floodplain ordinance when you have outdoor storage within the floodplain. So that's where that comes from, but they already have it posted.
Okay, so no new funds?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr.
Schleck.
Schleck, thank you. Can't quite read the name.
Close enough.
For joining us, yes. You can make fun of me later. With that, this is a public hearing. It is 6:41, and I'm going to open up the public airwaves for anyone that wants to approach the lectern. They may. Also, we have, could have people on Zoom besides Mr. Schleck and people on the phone. So it doesn't sound like there's anybody on Zoom, and no one's approaching the lectern, so I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:42, and I'm going to turn to my ever-willing commissioners to see any discussion on this subject. Got a lot of shaking hands, a lot of, no. Anyone want to make a motion? We have a motion from Commissioner Timmerman. Commissioner Anderson.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None. Well, that will go to the consent agenda at the next city council meeting, which I believe, if I can do my math correctly, will be June
21st.
21st. Thank you for your help with my math. At 5:30 in these very chambers. And thank you for joining us, Mr. Schleck. Appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate you guys using Burnsville. With that, I'm going to move to our next agenda item, and that is a hearing application for Rebecca J. Miller for a variance to allow the west front yard setback to be reduced from the 30-foot requirement to 19 feet 9 inches setback to construct a proposed 14 by 20-foot deck in addition to the west side of the existing house located at 312 Maple Island Road. I'm going to take the opportunity to apologize to Ms. Miller. I went to school with a Kim Miller, so I thought your name was Kim. So thank you and welcome. And with that, we have our other city planner, Sarah Madden, here to present. Ms. Madden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. So as stated, the item before you this evening is a variance request for the construction of a deck. So the subject site is an existing platted lot of record in the Maple Island subdivision. So it's approximately 14,500 square feet. The site itself is zoned R1, single family, and guided as low density residential in the comprehensive plan. Based on its location, it is within the shoreland overlay zone because it is within 1,000 feet of the ordinary high water line of Crystal Lake. So it is subject to impervious surface standards because of that, but as you'll note, looking at the map that we presented, it's not on the lakeshore itself, but is within the shoreland zone. So shown here is a survey of the property with some measurements on top to try to illustrate this for you. So you can see it's a little pale, but the green line does show the 30-foot setback from the west property line. So you can see from here, so this home itself was built in 2010. There was a previous home on the property that was demolished after some fire damage. So with this home, built in 2010, it was built to existing, conforming zoning requirements. The home itself does not currently have a deck. The request is for a 14 by 20 foot deck, as well as the stairs to access that deck, which would be within the 30-foot setback. So the reason that the rear of the property has a front yard setback is, in this case, this property does bound to street frontages on a public road, as Maple Island Road makes that loop. So within the 30-foot setback would be the 19-foot 9-inch request for the deck. I did show on here as well that the proposed stairs to access the deck are also within the 30-foot setback, but at a reduced from that 19.9. So the request this evening is that for that 19 feet 9 inches outlined here. So when the applicant does move forward with this, they would be expected there would be a building permit that is required for the construction of the deck, and at that time the impervious surface worksheet would be filled out for staff to review, planning and our natural resources staff for that impervious surface amount. When the home was built, the impervious surface worksheet was provided at 21.4%. The applicants indicated that there may be a future paver patio or something similar off the side of the home. We would review that impervious surface as that comes up, as pavers are considered impervious surface under the shoreline ordinance. So shown here, we do have the sketch of what the shape of the deck would be, and the applicant has provided a photo of the home where you can see that when the home was constructed, it was expected that there would be a deck constructed at a later date. So there is that doorway that has been stubbed in, and then you can also see another rear access point, which is where the applicant has indicated that there would be potential for a future, again, like a patio style, which we would review for that. So just some things to consider with this variance request. The applicant did fill out and provide the variance guideline policy indicating 11 positive factors, 2 negative, and 6 that were not applicable to the application. With the staff review, we've determined the practical difficulties demonstrated in the status of this double frontage lot. It's an existing condition of the site, not due to any action of the homeowner, that it was platted in this matter. And then reasonable to install the deck in the proposed location where that door is existing from the construction of the original home, and that the request is for 19 feet 9 inches, which is less than 50% of the ordinance requirement. Overall, we feel that this would not impact the neighborhood, and it meets the kind of spirit and intent of what's requested for this deck structure, and staff is supportive of the application. The applicant did get some neighborhood support in advance of the application, which was included on their narrative letter that they provided in their initial application materials. And then we also have an email that a neighbor provided separately, which was provided to you in advance of this meeting, but after the publication of the packet for the meeting. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the application subject to the 2 conditions, one of which is that a building permit will be required for the deck, and that an updated impervious surface worksheet is provided for the improvements to the property that would impact that. So there would be a hearing this evening for that variance request. With that, though, I can stand for questions, and the applicant is also in the audience if needed.
Well, thank you, Ms. Madden. Commissioners, any questions for the staff? Commissioner Timmerman.
Ms. Mann, you said they might have to come back if they were to do the patio. Would that be a variance as well, or could this cover that request as well, or can we make it cover that request as well?
So a patio would not be reviewed for a setback for a structure. It is not considered a structure with it being at grade. But it would be reviewed as part of any impervious surface increase that our natural resources staff would ask for an impervious surface worksheet to be provided to ensure that it's not increasing over the 25%. But no variance for setbacks because it's not considered a structure.
Got it, so kind of a separate issue because of that.
That's right.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Ms. Miller, you can come speak if you'd like. Your opportunity for your 15 minutes of fame right here in front of Commissioner Wallace's mother and everything. Yeah. And if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Rebecca J. Miller, a resident at 312 Maple Island Road. And I just want to thank you for reviewing my application and the time that you have spent reviewing that for your decision. That's it.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I'm assuming we don't have any questions for Ms. Miller. All right, with that, I'm gonna go to discussion here, folks. Motions, ideas, thoughts?
Open a hearing.
Public hearing?
Oh, I thought it wasn't a public hearing, okay.
It's a public hearing.
What is it, a hearing?
It's a hearing.
It doesn't have to, yeah, it doesn't have to be formally opened.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Watt?
I think it's an excellent presentation, as always. It's kind of a no-brainer, and I would be supportive of this. And it's super helpful to have your neighbors' input, so thank you for, making that, that helps make everything a lot easier, so appreciate that. With that, I'll make a motion.
Sounds like a plan.
Nobody else has an objection. So I move that we recommend to the City Council approval of the variance application subject to the two conditions that were listed.
Thank you, Commissioner Watt. Any second to Commissioner Watt's motion? Commissioner Anderson?
I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I do want to echo Commissioner Watt. Thank you for taking the extra mile. You really did your homework on this one, and this is why we have a variance, exactly for your property, so appreciate that. With that, I will call a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? None. That makes it unanimous. It's going to end up on the consent agenda on June 21st in front of City Council. That means it will be passed with a whole bunch of other ones, so it should be a simple slam dunk. That's the thing I was going for. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and appreciate your help getting all that straightened out. With that, I'm going to go to the next.
Enjoy your barbecues.
All right, we have item number 5 is topics for council liaison quarterly check-in.
Yes, we have this is the second quarter. We did meet with Councilmember Scholes earlier this year, and just wanted to know if the commissioners, if you have any particular topics, and then we can invite Councilmember Scholes to come in and speak with the Planning Commission, or if you are good and don't have any, then we can let her have some time off until, our next quarter. Just thought we would check in with the Planning Commission to see what your interests would be.
Any thoughts, commissioners? Commissioner Watt?
Very chatty today.
Yes, you are.
Not so much, the question is really about the next kind of zoning review. We've done a few of those zoning reviews and just kind of get a sense for the timing of the next one. So I don't know if that really, has to do with the city council person, but just a question.
All right.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. Actually, with that, with our community development director leaving, we are really crunched for time, but we are still working on that. We're anticipating, I think, coming to the commission with a couple of minor housekeeping type amendments, because we have some folks out there that have an interest in doing some things that we've discussed as part of this, but rather than having them wait until, the entire thing is done, maybe we can do a couple of minor changes and go forward. But I will be working on the residential part of it to complete that. It's probably about 75% done at this point, and then we'll look at bringing that in for planning commission review. So hopefully sometime end of July, kind of shooting for that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else have? Commissioner Wallace, you haven't said a thing all day.
I'm just here if needed.
Oh, I appreciate that, just in case somebody goes down. Because you never know, right? You never know. Anyway, outside of that, I'm trying to think of something that maybe we could discuss, but
Or if you think of something, and then just maybe send us an email and let us know kind of topics, so she can prepare a little bit and
sure.
make that time as productive for everyone as possible.
Sounds great, thank you. And we're gonna take that and move on to item number 6, updates. Any updates, commissioners? Any updates, staff?
So just a few. So the variance application for the reasonable accommodation request that was reviewed at the last planning commission meeting was on the regular agenda at last week's city council meeting, and the city council did vote 3-2 in denial of that variance application. So the way that it was presented is that the findings of fact for adoption would be at the next regular city council meeting. So they voted and directed staff to come back with the findings of fact, but otherwise the 4-0 recommendation of denial from the planning commission continued on to be a 3-2 for their final vote on that. So that's one update, and then I cannot think.
Training.
Oh, that's the important one. So we do have the reappointment of planning commissioners. The regular training for that is this Wednesday at, I believe it's 6:30 p.m. You are all invited for it. Some of you were appointed when we were still doing virtual training. So the city attorney is going to be giving some training, which many of you have already likely attended, about the general items for city attorney, but at this training there's going to be a little bit more of an emphasis on the building safety training, and having a representative from the police department make some comments about building safety and exiting of the building. So you are all invited for this as a recap. I do believe if you were one of the commissioners that was reappointed, you may have already gotten some information from the city clerk's office about the training. Technically the policy does ask that if you're reappointed that you attend the training at that time. So that's this Wednesday in this room, I believe, at 6:30 p.m. And then your next planning commission meeting, which is June 27th, we will keep you updated on that. At this time, we have no public hearings which are scheduled to be on that meeting. We are trying to coordinate with the city attorney's office to have some separate planning and land use related discussion and training items in place of that regular meeting. But we haven't quite nailed it down with our city attorney contacts yet. But that's the intent, and if not, you would receive a cancellation notice from us very soon, within the next couple of days, if we don't get that nailed in. And so that's the end of updates.
Thank you. And with that, it takes us to the last item on our agenda. Commissioner Braddock.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made by Commissioner Braddock. Commissioner Watt.
Did I beat you?
He did, he's quick, he's quick.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Good night, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.